Hey everyone, I'm Kela, the head educator at Sunergos, and today we're going to be brewing on the Etkin. I'm really excited to brew on this because it's a relatively new device. It is made in Turkey from Turkish porcelain, and it's really unique to its field in that it's a large brewer, so you can make 8 cups up to 1 liter. And really the only other thing out there is the Chemex. And the Etkin has some big differences from it that we'll get into later. But a few of the features, so there is one large drain hole at the bottom, and then there's these nice deep like ridges inside which allow for a really quick flow. So you can't really pour too fast in these guys. And then the last thing is that it has that flat ground bed. So that geometry just really helps you to get a more even extraction without having to try too hard, just because your grounds bed is going to be about the same depth all throughout. It's double walled just to make it a little bit easier to grab onto after you're done brewing. And then on the bottom, these holes are just part of the design ergonomically. They don't really do anything to your brew. We are brewing it on an Etkin carafe. Now, it sits nicely on there. It can move around, so you just want to be gentle with it. And you can use other things, but we really like using this just to collect the coffee. It gives you some room to mix it really well. And then yeah, what you're gonna need today: a grinder. We're using the Fellow O Generation 1. We've got our Fellow variable temp kettle. It is a gooseneck, so you just get controlled flow rate from that small little spout. Your scale, filters, a timer. As far as filters, we are using the Melitta 8 to 12 cup flat bottom filters. They're kind of thin, so I personally like to double them up, but you can use a bun filter, or Etkin has just started making their own 8 cup filters as well. And then one last cool thing, it doesn't just come in 8 cups. If you would prefer a smaller version, they have a 2 cup. So the recipe we're using today is about a 16:1 ratio. So we're using 45 grams of coffee and then 750 grams of water at 212 degrees Fahrenheit. That's going to produce about 20 ounces of coffee. And yeah, it's just nice if you want to brew a lot of coffee that is a pour over, and it's not going to take you too long. So you should finish your brew time around 5 minutes. It could be a little bit longer or shorter, but usually around 5 minutes is where it rests really nicely. So one thing that Etkin recommends, we're gonna be using their recipe today, is that you don't pre-wet your filter, just so it doesn't kind of fill that hole and choke out your grounds. And so what I did beforehand was I just preheated this device by pouring some hot water in it and then pouring it out just to keep everything nice and hot to keep extraction up. So let's get started. I'm gonna grind my coffee. We are grinding on 8. That's about a medium coarse-ish grind. Wonderful. And just gonna put it straight in my filter. And I usually double check just to make sure that my grounds are the same as what I started with. So then I'm gonna tear it back out. And we're gonna just flatten this grounds bed a little bit. So what we're gonna be doing today is just adding 150 grams at a time. We're gonna put that first bit of water in there, let it sit for 45 seconds. That's your bloom time, so you're just releasing natural gases. And then at 45 seconds, we're gonna add another 150 grams in those increments up until the 750. I like to try to time it out to where I'm adding 150 every 45 seconds. I just like how that works, but again, it's really forgiving, and so if you're not perfect in your timing, it's still gonna end up really tasty. So let's just get into it. I'm gonna start my timer as soon as I start pouring my water. And I'm just gonna circle all the way out, coating all of those grounds and circling back in, and just trying to cover everything evenly since it is a flat bed of coffee. You don't want to spend too much time in one part of it. And there we are. Let that sit for a little bit. So some of the differences between this and a Chemex, the first thing is that this is gonna brew a lot faster than a Chemex. So a Chemex has that conical shape to where there's a deep spot in the middle. And then it also uses a pretty thick filter. And so those two things can sometimes slow down your brew time. And this really doesn't ever do that. You can typically get a good cup of coffee relatively fast. The second thing is that the Etkin doesn't require a ton of your attention to the details. So we are going to try to stick to a pattern just so we can repeat it, but I don't have to be as meticulous about it because it does just promote that even extraction without too much of the fuss. And then the third thing about it is that it will yield a different body than the Chemex. So because the Chemex has a thicker filter, that's going to collect a lot of your oils and fines from your coffee. And so those things aren't going to end up in your cup, which yields a very tea-like body. And people really love that. But if that's not for you, the Etkin is really nice because you're still gonna get a nice full body on your coffee, but it's gonna be sweet. You're still gonna be able to distinguish those flavor notes. And it just doesn't demand as much from you, the brewer, which some people just really enjoy that, especially if you're just rolling out of bed, you just wanna make a large pot of coffee for yourself. It's gonna make something really tasty with minimal effort. Oh, I'm just going up here now to 600. And then after that, I'll just have one more pour. The other thing about the Etkin, it just has so much flexibility. You can really try out all different kinds of recipes. If you wanted to go ahead and just pour like all of your water in at once, you could do that. It will regulate that flow rate for itself. You can try different grind size, different temperatures, and it's almost always gonna consistently produce something really tasty. Just taking special attention to be even in my distribution, and then making sure I'm ending right at 750 grams. Sweet, and now we wait. Typically I time my drawdown by when my stream just starts to drip, and then I will keep that in mind, and if I like it at whatever time it brewed at, I'll keep with that. If I don't like it, I might change my grind setting and then take note of the time, the following time, and see if I enjoy that more. And we're sitting at about 5 minutes and 15 seconds, which is pretty great. You might have just seen me kind of finagle the filter a little bit. If you see that water resting and not moving, just might need a little help to loosen it, to open up that space between the hole and your filter. So I'm just gonna set this to the side very carefully. And something that I always do before I taste coffee is stir it, or you can swirl it if you like. And this is just integrating all those delicious flavors that we brewed. And then lastly, you've got to taste it. The really nice thing about the Etkin is, again, you can make so much coffee. So especially if you're just entertaining and you want to make something that's a little bit more handcrafted than just a pot of coffee, again, it's really approachable and easy. So let's see how it's tasting here. Awesome. I love it. I love the body. I like that it's sweet. Again, it's almost comparable to like a Melitta, if you've ever brewed on a Melitta, just like really easy to brew and really tasty, no hassle. And so we hope that you try this at home and that you like it and that you brew for either yourself or other people and just enjoy the process. Have a great day.